Hello, my name is Brian Mooney. I'm a Regional Director with PJ Hegarty in Dublin. I've been with PJ Hegarty for 25 years now. As a business, PJ Hegarty carry out operations in many challenging high-risk areas. Working close to and around existing life services is common on our sites. Our core value is to ensure the safety and well-being of our people on site, delivering a high-quality product for our clients, ensuring no impact or disruption to operations. Planning ahead to ensure we have the right people and resources in place is key to this process. This guidance video details how we as a business operate around these sensitive areas. I hope you find it informative.
Welcome. This is a training video for the PJ Hegarty Working in Close Proximity to Underground Services procedure. This training is for all personnel who may be involved directly or indirectly with excavation and other ground penetrating activities, such as piling operations. During this training session, we will discuss hazards associated with working within close proximity to underground services, ensuring competency for personnel involved in the task, planning and coordinating the work activity, identifying and locating services safely, protecting services, monitoring a safe system of work. Accidents and incidents whilst excavating happen far too often for two main reasons. People fail to respect the dangers of excavating around life services, and they fail to follow safe working procedures. Failure of these can lead to fatal accidents, serious injuries, and damage to services, causing disruptions to local businesses, local residents, amenities, and the environment. The most common cause of injury is because of operatives coming into direct contact with services when using mechanical diggers, rock-breaking equipment, or piling rigs. Even the simplest of tasks, such as replacing a fence post or driving a rod into the ground, can result in a service strike. We must never take for granted the risk involved when excavating. Let's look at the PJ Hegarty procedure for working in close proximity to underground service. The procedure flowchart contained within details the procedure step by step. There are four main phases to excavation or groundworks: planning and preparation, locating services, protecting those services, monitoring work activity to ensure safe systems are followed. Before we take a closer look at each of these phases, it is important to understand that the key to ensuring a safe system of work is to have the right personnel involved. This means ensuring the competency of personnel managing excavations and any other ground penetration works. There is a number of people involved in the task both directly and indirectly, including the project manager, site engineer, the project supervisor, the excavation coordinator, the excavation supervisor, excavator operator, and the spotter. PJ Hegarty have a process in place using the competency assessment form to assess the suitability of key personnel involved in the task. This ensures they have the required training, knowledge, and experience. This process of competency assessment clearly defines roles, help to ensure that the best possible people are in place to carry out the job safely. Two key roles identified for working in close proximity to underground services are the excavation coordinator and excavation supervisor.
Hi, my name is Noel Cosgrove. I'm a senior engineer with PJ Hegarty, and part of my role is fulfilling the duties of an excavations coordinator. As part of that role, I'm involved in the preparation, development and review of RAMs, which is your method statement and risk assessment for carrying out work safely. As part of that role, I need to make sure all service plans relative to the works area are in place. These need to be reviewed before any works get underway on site. Also, this needs to be communicated to relevant asset owners and utility providers that have a known service in our work zone. They may have special conditions or controls that we need to apply to our works. Before any works are carried out, I need to make sure the area is properly CAT scanned by a logs trained person. These services need to be clearly marked on the ground and explained to the crew. If there's any services exposed in the area, they need to be properly protected, such as support, shielding or spray marked so it makes them more visually impactful to the surrounding soils. Once this is complete, I need to make sure all documentation is in place. That means method statement is signed by the crew and they're aware of their responsibilities. Permits are signed and authorisations are in place. Once this is complete, the excavation supervisor is handed the permit. He needs to be briefed on his roles and responsibilities, and from here he takes charge of the job. Once the works are underway, I'll carry out regular visits to site to audit, but also carry out inspections that the procedures are being adhered to, but also point out any room for improvement.
My name is Pádraig Bergen. I'm a site supervisor with PJ Hegarty & Sons. Today I'm going to explain the role of an excavation supervisor. So as a supervisor, I would work very closely with the excavation coordinator and ensure all documentation is provided prior to starting works. Documents that I would expect to receive would be permits, RAMs and a service drawing. Once that's in place, I would liaise with the crew regarding our SPA, which is a Safe Plan of Action. SPA is a very important document. It's a live document that can be amended at any stage throughout the job. The best thing about the SPA is that all crew members can participate and they're all involved in identifying the hazards and coming up with a safe plan prior to starting works. As part of my job as well, I would ensure that the safe system of work is being followed and briefed throughout the crew. As a supervisor, I would ensure that the control measures stipulated with working close to live services is being adhered to. I'd need to be ensured that a lugs trained operative is present at all times throughout the excavation works. And this is very important as the regular rescanning and regular marking of known services is being carried out. As a supervisor, it's very important that an excavator bucket does not come within 500mm of a known service. It's also very important that any exposed live service is protected adequately. And the most important thing is, if the safe system of work is not being followed or adhered to, work should stop immediately.
Planning and preparation. As with all jobs, big or small, everything begins with careful planning and preparation. This involves gathering information such as ground surveys, as-built drawings, contacting service providers, discussing the works with the site team to ensure all are informed of the details surrounding the activity, and considering any requirements for temporary work. All hazards and risks must be identified, assessed, and control measures put in place to ensure a safe system of work. Utility drawings should give a good indication of where services are located, but remember, these are just a guide and are not always 100% accurate for a variety of reasons, such as boundary lines getting moved. Drawings won't always tell you how deep a service is buried, as jobs are planned months in advance. Services may have been moved or added in that time. It is always important to request the most up-to-date drawings. Never assume services go in a straight line between known points. Service can also be looped. This is a common way to use up excess cable at the time of the original installation. It is important to take this risk into consideration. Look for any other indications that underground services exist. For example, look out for lamp posts, marker posts, chamber lids, or evidence of reinstated ground. It is important that this information during the planning and preparation stage is included in the task-specific risk assessment and method statement, otherwise known as RAMs. It is important that the method of works and the associated risks are clearly communicated to all persons involved in the activity. It is critical that the agreed methodology is always followed. The crew must complete a safe plan of action for the task, also known as an SPA. This is completed on site and is a dynamic risk assessment tool to help workers directly involved in the task to identify hazards in their work area. It is important that before any physical work commences, all relevant documentation is in place. Mandatory documents include the RAMs, the SPA, the excavation or dig permit, and associated surveys and service drawings. Always follow the permit procedure. Drawings should always be in colour. In areas where there is a large number of services, it may be required to enlarge a section of the drawing to ensure it is legible. Drawings should be discussed and understood by all involved in the task. The next phase we look at in our procedure is how we can safely locate services. This involves using visual indicators picked up during the planning and preparation stage, using CAT and Jenny scanners, vacuum excavators, and the hand dig machine assist method. Always remember, if there is no evidence of underground services, it does not mean they don't exist. The CAT and Jenny scanners are key tools used for locating underground services. The CAT, or cable avoidance tool, has proved very reliable over the years in the hands of well-trained persons. It is important to know that a CAT scanner only receives signals from cables that are producing a magnetic field or rendering a radio signal. A CAT scanner should ideally be used together with a Jenny. The Jenny is a device that generates a signal to services not emitting one, so to allow the CAT to locate these services. Modern versions of the CAT scanner works by using several modes of detection. For example, power mode, radio mode plus the active method. This is the power and radio mode combined with a Jenny. It is important to be aware that the CAT cannot guarantee to locate all services buried in the ground, and they generally cannot locate plastic pipe without additional procedures. It is therefore important that you understand the limitations of the device that you are using. CATs are extremely useful and sophisticated devices, but it is important that the operative receives correct training before putting a CAT and Jenny to work. The Jenny works by generating a signal that can be applied to anything that is metal, including underground pipes and cables. Take this lightning pole, for example, that is connected to an electrical buried cable. Even though the electrical cable is not emitting a power signal, the Jenny can apply a signal to it, and the CAT can detect the signal from it for the full length of the buried cable. Remember, cable avoidance tools must be treated with care, and to ensure they are working accurately, it is important that they are calibrated at least once a year. When you do locate a service using the CAT and Jenny, you should mark their location with the relevant color-coded paint. You should also mark the area you're planning to dig. PJ Hegarty do not allow any mechanical digging within 500 mm of any known service. This buffer zone may be increased where a client or service provider specifies it. It is important to spray the ground marking this buffer zone regularly throughout the day. Once we have done everything, we can locate services above the ground. We can then proceed to excavate the local services below the ground. This can be done using one or all of the following methods. Using a vacuum excavator. Using the vacuum excavation machine assist method. Using the hand dig machine assist method. Let's look at locating and exposing services using a vacuum excavator. A vacuum excavator uses high-pressure air to accurately control excavations. Spoil is sucked through a vacuum hose and is deposited into a debris tank for later disposal or for backfilling into an excavation. A pneumatic air pick or an air lance can be used in conjunction with the vacuum excavator to expose services. This tool uses a controlled stream of high-speed compressed air to dislodge soil from around buried services. These are non-invasive methods, so only porous materials is removed, leaving all services intact. Second method for locating and exposing services: the vacuum excavator and the machine assist method. In some cases, it may be more practical to use a vacuum excavator with the assistance of a mechanical excavator to locate services. When the top layer of soil is removed by an excavator, a trained operative must scan the area again using a CAT and Jenny scanner and respray the location of services. A pattern can be used across the dig location for the vacuum excavator to follow. The excavation coordinator will agree the pattern for the vacuum excavator to follow. The ground will then be vacuum excavated, following the pattern in the designated area to a depth of approximately 500 mm. If no services are found, the excavator, with a spotter in attendance at all times monitoring, can remove this 500 mm layer of soil. The cycle of vacuum excavator. Moving a layer of 500 mm must be repeated until warning tape, sand, or a service is located. The excavator must never clear away material to a depth greater than the vacuum excavator has explored. Once a service has been located, it is important to note its location and to take a photo of its condition. A zigzag or a wavy S shape can be used along a trench. An X pattern can be used on a wider excavation. Remember, never use a hose with a jagged edge on a vacuum excavator, as they can cause damage to underground services. Exposing services using the hand dig machine assist method. When the top layer of soil is removed by an excavator, a trained operative must scan the area again using a Cat and Jenny scanner and respray the location of services. An operative will then hand dig along the trench in an S, Z or X type pattern, depending on the size of the excavation or trench, to a depth of 100 mm. If no services are found, the excavator with the spotter monitoring can remove this 100 mm layer of explored soil. The excavator must never clear away material to a depth greater than what the operative has explored using hand digging. This cycle of hand dig, remove a layer, will be repeated until warning tape or service is exposed. If a service is detected, try and hand dig horizontally along the line of the service to expose it for more control. Never use mechanical equipment to remove soil from around a service. Only use hand digging or a vacuum excavator to remove soil from around a service. Never use a pick or a fork to remove soil from around an exposed service. Never rely on the service color coding to indicate the type of service. Accidents have occurred when services have been mistaken for another. For example, one of these ducts contains electric cabling, but both are covered in black plastic. And what about these? Are they gas or water mains? Both are cast iron. Would you risk your life on a guess? And what if they looked old and redundant? Don't be so sure. They may have services contained within them. Always treat services as live. If you come across any damage to pipes or ducts, report it immediately, even if there is no immediate danger. Other people could be exposed to the danger later on. And never attempt to repair a service. Sometimes we find uncharted services or a service encased in concrete. Remember, where there is a change in the safe system of work, stop and consult the excavation supervisor and coordinator. Work can only recommence when a safe system of work has been agreed and all team members have been briefed of the revised RAMs. This could mean contacting the service provider and seeking guidance. Remember, the majority of service strikes are as a result of not following the safe system of work. Protection of services and working safely around exposed services. Once a service has been located and safely exposed, where it is possible, note the location and depth of the service and cover it back up where possible. Use above surface protection so they cannot be penetrated. Some examples of this can include using markers, posts, fencing off the area, bog mats or steel plates. There is any number of methods you can use above ground to ensure service protection. Where it is not possible to cover up a service and where we are working in close proximity to them, they must be protected. Some simple examples of protection for exposed underground services can include using some sprayed wooden ply sheets to cover and protect the exposed services from any rubble or debris. Key rules to remember when excavating. 1. Always follow the safe system of work. Works must be regularly monitored by the excavation supervisor and coordinator. 2. Never proceed past a hold point. A hold point is a mandatory verification point beyond which work cannot proceed without the approval of the excavation coordinator. 3. Never use a mechanical excavator or attachments within 500 mm of a detected service. 4. Never overload the excavator bucket when excavating. Damage to services can happen when objects fall from the bucket when it has been raised. Take the spoil away in layers. 5. A spotter must be with the excavator at all times whilst excavating. The spotter must be trained on the approved hand signals to be used. Many of items of plant have limited visibility from the operator's position, and these are known as blind spots. The size and position of blind spots can vary from machine to machine, so it is imperative that there is a clear line of vision between the driver and the spotter at all times. There are areas around the plant that must not be entered by anyone due to the lack of visibility from the operator's position. These areas are known as exclusion zones. Never enter an exclusion zone without first seeking the approval from the spotter or the machine operator. There may be times when other members of the workforce need to enter the exclusion zone of a machine. Where this is required, you must use the thumbs up protocol. This involves approaching in the spotter or driver's line of sight and obtaining their attention. The plant operator will then stop and give a thumbs up to safely enter. The worker must never enter an exclusion zone until they have received a thumbs up to safely enter. So, now the services are in the ground, it is now time to backfill. But there are dangers here too, particularly for people who have to live with your work at a later date. When you are backfilling around services, use fine materials such as sand or other approved material like shingle. Do not backfill directly into a trench with a dumper unless stop blocks are in place. When backfilling, always use marker tape so future workers have a chance to identify services. Record any uncharted service or services where their location is not as per drawings. Report these to the service owner so information can be made available to others in the future.
We cannot underestimate the dangers of working in close proximity to underground services. Unfortunately, harsh lessons have been learnt in our industry from the past. The aim of putting this production together was to increase your knowledge and awareness for people working in this area of work. We hope that you find the good practices demonstrated in this video beneficial and that you'll utilise them in your place of work going forward.